When the ancient world spoke of justice, they weren't exactly thinking about community service, a stern warning, or a slapped wrist. We are talking about a time when the legal system was less about fairness and more about creative cruelty, where you might find yourself sewn into a leather bag with a live monkey, force-fed until your internal organs surrendered, or paying off a legal fine in thousands of very angry, stinging bees. Today, we are stripping back the sanitized layers of the history books to reveal 10 of the most bizarre, unbelievably savage, and truly nonsensical ways ancient civilizations dealt with their criminals. Forget everything you think you know about law and order. In the ancient world, the courtroom was a circus, the judge was a tyrant, and the sentence was usually a one-way ticket to a very weird grave. Number 1. The Roman animal sack, pona culei. The Romans viewed parricide, the act of killing a parent or close relative, as a crime so unnatural it threatened the very fabric of the universe. To punish it, they didn't just want you dead, they wanted you erased from the memory of the living and the dead. This led to the creation of the poina culei, or penalty of the sack. Instead of a standard execution, the criminal was beaten with blood-colored rods and then sewn into a massive waterproof leather bag. But they weren't alone. The condemned was packed in with a bizarre living quartet: a dog, a rooster, a venomous viper, and a monkey. Yes, a monkey. Whether the monkey was there for dramatic flair or just to add to the screaming, scratching chaos inside the bag is still debated by historians. This thrashing sack of misery was then hauled on a cart drawn by black oxen and hurled into the Tiber River. The goal was to deny the murderer the elements: no air, no light, and no earth for a burial. You spent your final moments fighting a terrified, confused circus of animals before the river claimed you both. Number 2. Scaphism, the Persian human sandwich. If you think solitary confinement is a nightmare, meet the ultimate slow-motion horror show known as Scaphism, or the boats. Favored by the ancient Persians for high treason, this was a masterpiece of agonizing multi-week humiliation. The victim was stripped naked and trapped between two hollowed-out boats or tree trunks, pinned down like a human sandwich with only their head, hands, and feet poking out of the seams. Then came the nutrition. They were force-fed a sickeningly sweet mixture of milk and honey until they developed explosive, debilitating diarrhea. To ensure maximum suffering, the same sticky mixture was slathered all over their face and limbs to attract every insect in the province. Left in a stagnant pond under the blistering sun, the victim became a living, breathing buffet for wasps, flies, and beetles. The insects didn't just bite, they bred inside the victim. Death usually took over 2 weeks of delirium and gangrene. It is perhaps the most thorough way to turn a human being into a literal walking pile of compost. Number 3. The Aztec chili smoke timeout. Aztec society was famously rigid, and they believed in starting justice early, even with children. For minor offenses like theft, laziness, or talking back to an elder, young offenders weren't sent to their rooms or grounded. Instead, they were subjected to a unique sensory form of torture, the chili smoke punishment. The child was held over a fire where dried, incredibly potent habanero-style chili peppers were tossed onto the hot coals. This created a thick, chemical cloud of capsicum-laced smoke that functioned exactly like modern-day tear gas. Imagine the blinding burn in your eyes and the searing, choking fire in your lungs, with your parents holding you in the cloud until you repented. It wasn't meant to kill, but to inflict a level of pain that ensured the kid would never even think about breaking a rule again. It remains history's most aggressive timeout, proving that ancient parenting often involved weaponized spices and zero chill. Number 4. Babylonian river roulette. In the Babylonian legal system, governed by the famous Code of Hammurabi, there were times when human evidence and witnesses simply failed, especially in cases of witchcraft or secret affairs where it was one person's word against another's. Their solution? Let the Euphrates River serve as the ultimate judge and jury. This was known as a trial by ordeal. The accused was taken to the swiftest part of the river and chucked into the water. The belief was that the river was a living god. If you were innocent, the water would accept you and let you swim to safety. If you were guilty, the river would claim you and pull you under. But there was a massive catch. If the accused managed to survive, they were declared innocent by divine right, and their original accuser was immediately executed for bringing a false charge.
It was a high-stakes legal system where your only defense was your ability to tread water and hope the gods weren't feeling hungry that day. Number 5. The Brazen Bull of Sicily. The tyrant Phalaris of Sicily wasn't satisfied with the quiet dignity of a beheading. He wanted his executions to be a spectacle. He commissioned an inventor named Perilius to create the Brazen Bull, a hollow bronze statue with a door in its side. The victim was locked inside, and a massive fire was stoked underneath, turning the bronze into a blistering metallic oven. The truly twisted genius was in the bull's head. It was fitted with a complex series of ceramic pipes and flutes that captured the victim's frantic screams and transformed them into a sound that resembled the majestic, mournful bellowing of a real bull. To the audience outside, it looked like the statue was coming to life, while incense smoke billowed from the bull's nostrils to cover the smell of burning flesh. It was the ultimate dinner and a show for psychopaths, designed to turn a man's final agony into a musical performance.
Number 6. Ancient Egypt's Crocodile Buffet. In ancient Egypt, robbing a grave wasn't just a crime against property, it was an act of cosmic terrorism. By damaging a mummy or stealing its protective amulets, you were effectively killing the soul's chance at an afterlife. The punishment for this was designed to be equally final. After a brutal public beating with rods, the grave robber was marched down to the banks of the Nile and thrown in to be eaten alive by crocodiles. This was a double whammy. There was the obvious physical pain of being torn apart by prehistoric teeth, and then there was the spiritual horror. To the Egyptians, if your body was destroyed, your soul had no home to return to, meaning you would wander the darkness of the underworld forever. In Egypt, if you messed with someone's eternity, you became a literal snack for a reptile and a spiritual ghost for the rest of time. Number 7. Roman Decimation, the ultimate group project. The Roman army was the most disciplined force on earth, but even the best legions occasionally flinched. If a unit showed cowardice in battle, mutinied, or lost their standards, the generals utilized a psychological horror called decimation, which literally means removal of a tenth. The entire disgraced unit, usually around 500 men, was lined up. Every 10th man was chosen by drawing lots, regardless of his actual guilt or bravery. The truly brutal part? The other 9 soldiers in each group were forced to beat their chosen comrade to death with clubs or stones. It was a masterstroke of cruelty. It didn't just punish the unlucky 10th man, it traumatized the survivors and made them personally responsible for the blood of their friends. After you've been forced to kill your best friend for a mistake you all made, you'll never dare to step out of line again. Number 8. The Hittite bee fine. While the Romans and Persians were busy inventing new ways to burn or drown people, the Hittites of Anatolia had a surprisingly non-lethal, yet incredibly annoying approach to justice. Honey was a luxury, and wax was vital for everything from lighting to sealing documents, so stealing a beehive was considered a major economic blow. The punishment wasn't execution, it was the bee fine. The thief was ordered to pay back the victim in actual live bees, often at a rate of 10 to 1. Imagine the logistical nightmare of having to capture, transport, and deliver a buzzing, aggressive swarm of thousands of angry insects as a legal settlement without a protective suit. The Hittites understood that sometimes the best way to punish a thief isn't a jail cell, but making their life a literal, stinging, buzzing headache for 3 days straight. Number 9. The Spartan living ghost. The Spartans valued military honor above their own lives. If a soldier flinched in battle or trembled, a coward, they didn't kill him, they made him wish he had died on the shield. The flincher was stripped of all citizenship and forced to live as a social pariah. He had to wear filthy, mismatched clothes with patches of colored cloth and was forbidden from shaving, forced to walk around with a half-shaven, unkempt beard as a mark of his shame. Crucially, no Spartan was allowed to speak to him, sell him food, or even look him in the eye. He became a living ghost, wandering the streets of a city that took pride in his total erasure. In a culture built entirely on brotherhood and warrior status, this total social banishment was a fate far more agonizing than a quick death on a spear. He existed as a walking warning to every young boy in Sparta. Death is honorable, but cowardice is forever. Number 10. The posthumous trial of Greece. In ancient Greece, death wasn't necessarily a get-out-of-jail-free card. If a person was found guilty of a massive crime, like treason or sacrilege, after they had already died of natural causes, the state would order a posthumous punishment to ensure the family didn't benefit from the crime. The authorities would actually exhume the body,
drag it unceremoniously through the streets in a parade of shame, and then dump the remains outside the city limits or hurl them into the sea. In a culture that believed a proper burial in ancestral soil was the only way to find peace in the afterlife, this was the ultimate spiritual execution. It was a public decree that you were too vile to even share the same earth as the community you betrayed. Even the grave couldn't hide you from the long, very petty arm of Greek law. So, the next time you feel like complaining about a parking ticket, a long line at the DMV, or a grumpy boss, just remember, at least you aren't being fitted for a leather sack with a grumpy monkey, or being force-fed milk and honey in a mosquito-filled swamp. Ancient justice was a wild, bloody, and often hilarious mess of poetic punishments that cared more about making a point than being fair. Which of these ancient justice moves do you think was the most unhinged? Personally, I'd take my chances with the bees over the crocodile buffet any day. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button if you're glad you live in the 21st century, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the weirdest corners of history. Stay law-abiding out there, or the Roman animal sack might just be making a comeback.